Hey there, Cheesemeisters. That would have been The Birds and the Bees by Jewel Akins, which was playing at the Peach Pit when everyone was celebrating Andrea's short lived victory in front of the school board. That also could have been Salt and Peppa's Let's Talk About Sex, because that's what this episode's about, even though they don't play that song in this episode.
They should.
They really should. Welcome to the Peach Pod, Cheesemeisters. I am Jeff. And all I got to say is, SEXPERTS GO HOME!
Yay!
Joining me on the other end of the internet, my host.
I'm Leslie, and I can't believe I ended up on the cutting room floor.
Again. All Brandon does is end up on the cutting room floor. It's tough. It's tough to be Brandon in this episode. Seemingly. But I think it's kind of tough to be everyone in this episode because, man, they took a swing with this one. This is season 2, episode 21. Everybody's talking about it. It's an episode with 3 apostrophes in the title, which means it ain't fucking around. This first aired February 6th, 1992. Which means we're into sweeps. So February sweeps means time to pull out the big guns.
Oh, that explains the ending.
Yeah, and do some episodes that do some stuff. And in this episode, all right, there's going to be a sex survey. And it was a whole meeting about it downtown that made the news, where Andrea's there and Mrs. Teasley's there in some very bright 1992 apparel, which is, I like it. It's bright and yellow and brown and just getting it done. Mrs. Teasley going to the meetings. And then John, who works on the newspaper, who we've seen a couple of times, which is nice. Like, I like that. And this is the thing I remember John from, is this episode. So the fact that they laid the groundwork for him to be here, I kind of like. It's that whole, like, Kyle shows back up again, you know, hey, there's Tony Miller, yes, kind of thing, where it's a high school full of people that, and not just random faces that show up to move the plot forward.
Yeah. So
John's there, gets more screen time than Brandon's elbow, who is left on the cutting room floor.
Good.
Yeah, because fuck Brandon. Yeah, and not in the stupid way that dumb internet people say it. We just mean it in the Brandon Walsh way. Yeah. And there's going to be a whole sex survey at school, and Andrea is really excited about it. She wants to get the word out about safe sex and AIDS prevention and et cetera, et cetera. And John is all for it. And Brandon is supportive, and yeah, I think kinda. I mean, he we're gonna have to get into this like, who lands on what, because at the start he is supportive of the effort. You know, like, he's there. He's not standing next to the guy in the blue sweater with the SEXPERTS GO HOME sign.
Your next Halloween outfit.
Man, look, we got to talk about the SEXPERTS GO HOME sign. Because I saw this episode probably 500 times before I noticed that guy. And I think it's mostly because when you're watching it, like, on a 1997 television, it's a little bit blurry, and you don't, like, it's a TV inside a TV kind of thing. And
yeah.
But when I saw that guy, he became my favorite person in the history of Beverly Hills 90210. Because, one, he is wearing the most appropriate outfit for a guy to be holding a sign that says SEXPERTS GO HOME.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got the khakis that are, I'm pretty sure, pulled up to just about the belly button. He's wearing a white button-down shirt with a tie covered by a light blue V-neck sweater. The sleeves of everything are all the way down. And he is just standing there. That's... I understand.
Internet incel.
He really kind of is. And I get I get the idea of being against condoms in school, but they're not even talking about condoms in school. He's against talking about sex, period.
Yeah.
And he certainly is against people who know things talking about those things. But the choice of signage, Sexperts Go Home, is fucking amazing to me. And here's the thing that I loved, I think, most about it when I first noticed it, is that I noticed it pre-COVID. And at first I thought it said experts go home. And then during COVID, I thought, well, ain't that the fucking message of the world? Like, there's so many people out there angry at people who know stuff about stuff, talking about stuff, that I before COVID, I wanted a t-shirt that said experts go home because I thought it was hilariously stupid.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened and I'm like, oh shit. Like, that made me, did you see that thing in like, I don't know, 2021? There was this, there was a woman who had gotten a tattoo on her arm in like December of 2019, and it said "Don't wear masks" or something like that. And it was she didn't want to like hide herself. I mean, she wanted to not wear a mask and like express who she really was. But then COVID happened, and then she looked like an anti-mask person, and she was like, worst timing for a tattoo ever. And that's how I felt about my Experts Go Home t-shirt idea.
Yeah.
And then I saw that it said Sexperts Go Home, and I thought, never mind, I love this t-shirt idea.
Yeah, I would like to manifest if we ever get to do an interview with someone involved in this series. Barring he's not a lunatic and because you really have to be careful anymore.
Yeah.
We've learned the hard way. Don't trust or meet. Don't do anything. Don't express any love for any hero ever. Anyway,
Well, don't have a hero is really what the answer is.
We don't need a hero anymore because you're a hero. Anyway.
But if I had a hero, it might be Sexperts Go Home guy.
And if we could meet that guy and just hear some stories, that would be cool.
Yeah,
Barring he's not a lunatic.
Maybe even if he is, because like here's what makes that sign better. Is it better if it's written by the writers and handed to a background player on the day and told, hold this? Or is it better if they told the background actors, here's what we're doing in this scene, make your own sign?
That one.
Yeah, it's 100% better if Sexperts Go Home guy wrote that sign himself and is like, this is Marge's time to shine. I'm getting on there. And he got
Mom made it, Ma.
That's right. He got multiple seconds of screen time. I mean, that sign is almost as subtle as the beginning of Boys in the Hood. Stop.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost that level of subtlety. And I love it. God, I love Sexperts Go Home.
He's immortalized in my phone now as the photo for you.
Which couldn't make me happier.
Oh my god. This is gonna be a long one, folks.
I don't know how you talk about this episode in an hour. I don't know how they put this episode in an hour, because we haven't even gotten to what happens really. Like, we just got to the TV where they're watching the news footage of the meeting that happens in the first 45 seconds of the show.
I mean, I can give you a quick synopsis, but I know you like to do those, so.
No, go ahead. Give us the quick, and let's see how quick we can get there.
The quick is Andrea wants to do a sex health survey for the students. School says no. She goes to the press. She goes to the school board. She says, fine, I one-up you. We need a condom dispenser. Once again, adults go nuts. The kids fight back, but then they also are fighting against each other, which is what the adults want. And we win-ish in the end. Not really, but, we learn a lot.
Do we? I mean, I guess we do. Okay, yeah, that is the quick. Good job.
Thank you.
Because I would have gotten bogged down in like another 10-minute conversation about the Sexperts Go Home guy. And I'm not saying that that's not going to happen again. Because that guy is my whole world.
Oh my God.
So, God, it's so hard to fucking know where to start with this. So let me just ask you, what are your thoughts with this episode? Because it's a fucking lot.
This is my favorite episode.
It's kind of my favorite episode. It's my favorite episode so far. Because you haven't seen Home and Away yet. But
okay. No, this is my favorite episode. Yeah, I'm also torn on where to start. I'm just going to start with what I'm sure everyone wants to know.
Okay.
Where are we on condoms versus ice cream?
Oh, yes. Let's start with the important stuff. Yes, please.
To do this fairly, because Cheesemeisters, I counted. And I thought, that doesn't seem fair to ice cream. But
it doesn't seem fair to ice cream, not on this one.
This is a democratic system, and
we count all the votes.
We count all the votes. And it came out to, drumroll, we are now 17-7.
17-7 condoms versus ice cream.
They said condoms 17 times.
Well, wait a minute. But they said condoms before, so what's our total? Like, if they said it 17 times in this episode.
It's 20-7. Sorry. Math is business, dude. I'm an actor. We hire people to do our math.
I got it. And to do our protesting. Sexperts go home.
Yes. So let me correct that on my phone. Oh my God. I'm glad you
got it. We got to have an accurate count of condoms versus ice cream. Yeah, this episode puts its thumb on the scale heavily of condoms.
I like your idea of the TV exec saying, hey, can you cool it with the sex talk? And Chuck Rosen just going, bet.
Yeah, that, you know what? That's a good place to start, because we talked about this a little bit prior to this episode. The fact that up to now in this episode, in this season, there has been no sex. Like, not any explicitly stated sex. Like, I think we assume that Brandon and Emily had sex.
Absolutely.
It's never said directly, but it's implied heavily, and then she acts crazy, which means she got the D, obviously. So, like, but it's real under the radar that if they had sex or not. It seems like Brenda and Dylan are back at it again, because they went to the symphony to try to quit boning, and they just wanted to bone more, but they just talked about making out. They didn't talk specifically about having sex. And we made it 21 episodes into this season. And again, our thought was, boy, it seems like the network execs at the end of season 1 said, that was way too much teen sex talk. Like, that's all Brenda wanted to talk about at the end of last season. We had a whole fucking rape episode. Like, there was a lot of talk about sexual assault. Like, we did a lot of sex in season 1. Can we just cool it a little bit, season 2? And so they did. So we get like a whole 20 episodes where there's no real overt sex talk. And then Chuck and Karen said, ooh, 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 let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the teenagers and all the sex they have. Let's talk about sex.
Because to act like teenagers don't have sex is naive.
Yes. And that feels like the thesis statement of the episode.
I wrote down in my notes at one point, ignorance over knowledge.
Yes, because Andrea said that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's necessarily a good place to start, but that's definitely something worth discussing, because I mean, it's still a problem today, even though kids are having less sex, because you're welcome, parents, the internet exists, they're having parasocial relationships.
Right.
They're doing weird, freaky stuff online instead.
Right. while paragliding? Is that what that means? I don't understand. Crazy ass kids with your paragliding sex.
Oh my god.
Okay, so god damn this fucking episode. It's so hard to get my arms around it.
Here's another idea of where to go, because I think it's worth discussing. Maybe not everyone's reaction to it, because there's a way to summarize that, but like it's interesting how the sexually active kids respond to this versus the sexually inexperienced ones, who are the most adequately verbose about this topic. And to
Yeah.
them, I say thank you. I wish I had been you. I was not. I was just like,
Oh,
oh,
so-
I know nothing about this. I'll be quiet.
Yeah. No, well, you know, not speaking when you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, aside from being the background of every podcast, is like not a great idea. You should probably know what you're talking about just a little bit.
No, you can have opinions.
You can totally have opinions. So I think we kind of have to go into Jim and Cindy's living room.
Okay.
Because I think that scene really sets up the back and forth of the episode. Like before that, you've got Jim and Cindy being like mostly just excited that the kids were on TV. And
the internet.
and then you've got excitement about like Steve's kind of excited about there's going to be a what the fuck do you call it? An assembly where they're going to do a live sex. Even though the last time there was a live sex talk, it was a lady who had AIDS. Like it wasn't what he thought it was going to be that time. Steve is just willing to jump back in again. Like he is undeterred by past experience. He's like, nope. Every sex seminar that we get at this school is gonna just be porn. I think is where Steve was at.
Yeah.
And then they canceled it, and Mrs. Teasley comes in to give them the bad news. Now, okay, here's the start. Here's the question. Why is Andrea so invested in this from the start? Like, she is super passionate about this topic before the episode begins. She's at the I don't know, it's not a school board meeting, it's like a town council meeting or something. And then she's at the school board meeting, and then she's like 0 to 60 from sex survey to condoms. And on the news, like, why is this Andrea's thing? Because it is.
Well, as discussed in the AIDS episode, I mean, aren't we at peak AIDS epidemic?
I mean, it's post Magic Johnson, which comes up in the episode.
Yes, yeah, very pamphlet moment. I feel like she's been reading what's been going on, and I think she's very passionate about it. And you know, maybe she's running on a high from that award she got for the cafeteria thing.
Expose, sure.
Yeah. So now she's like, this is going to be my next conquest.
Yeah.
And if I don't ever have sex, I will have a sex survey for the school. I mean,
surprise material.
I mean, I also think it's very on brand for any teenager or adult. You find something that strikes a chord with you, and you're gung-ho about it all of a sudden. You want to know everything. And I mean, see, what's funny is everyone seems very thrown off by her passion for it, to the point where Brandon does a very this is where I first yelled "fuck you, Brandon" in the episode. I yelled it a lot when he's like, all right, settle down, Andrea, because that's exactly what happens to women anytime they get a little heated or excited talking about anything. The guy goes, whoa, okay, calm down. It's like, I wasn't even yelling. I wasn't even at a 5.
Right.
But okay.
That was me calm, bitch.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
The amount of times I've had to be like, you haven't even seen me angry yet.
Yeah, this isn't angry. This is like if I was the Hulk, I wouldn't even be like dilated green eyes. Like nothing would be green here. Not yet. So they cancel the survey and
They create a monster.
they really, boy, they do. Because Andrea is like, okay, well, no one could possibly be offended by these questions. So let's try to offend some people. And maybe Andrea is the most Chuck Rosen mouthpiece in this episode.
Okay.
Like maybe she is the megaphone he's holding up to say, this is a fucking problem.
Yeah.
We should be talking about it. It's a real problem. And so Andrea is like facts and figures lady. Like she's coming at it with the stats. She's given all of the info because the information says this. And I'm going to say this because that's what the science is telling me. That's what all of the statistics say. We need to address this issue. I'm putting all of the data in Andrea's mouth because she's a nerd. So Andrea gets the data. And they go to the parent meeting at Casa Walsh, and we meet Felice for the first time.
Yay.
Felice in her power houndstooth outfit.
Very Cruella de Vil now that I'm thinking about it. Like,
Kind of is with the black and white, yeah.
see you, Chuck.
They're doing it on purpose, 100%. And they put most of the parents in the same room together, which we haven't really seen yet. Like we get Jackie and Mel. And Jackie, come see, come saw, got a little bug.
I know, I love that. I was like, ooh, I understand that.
I do too. It makes me happy that that's like the first thing she ever says to Felice on the show is
But
come see,
people
come saw.
do. They
Little
throw
bug.
in a little the rare little bit of another language that they know.
Yeah, exactly. And then Mel's there, strident.
Oh yeah.
Mel is on a horse, and that horse is called Sex for Teenagers. But like safe sex for teenagers, just not for adults. But we'll get to that later.
Ah!
Look, he can't feel anything. It's like it's kind of numbing. And I have a latex allergy, says Mel. And
Michael Scott at Jim and Pam's wedding, like, look, it's a different sensation. I know they say it's not, but it is.
yeah, Mel. Oh boy, Mel. And Jim and Cindy are there, and Jim and Cindy's reaction is like, "Look, the last time we let people in our living room, the black people down the street were run out of town. Now we let you fools back in our living room, and we're yelling at each other about condoms and safe sex, and we're kind of uncomfortable with all of this. Let's just keep it cool." And then Felice gets up and says, "Would you like to know who Felice Martin is? Let me fucking tell you in my houndstooth matching ensemble. My husband, Dr. John Martin, who I'm not telling you is a heart surgeon at this point, but he is off at a conference talking about safe sex to other doctors. So I'm here to tell you about abstinence-only education." And this is why this episode is my favorite to date. Because they don't take a side and shove it down your throat. They take all of the sides and they say all of them out loud, and they have someone express those things, and then they have the kids go, "I kind of see your point," every time someone has a position. And while abstinence only is fucking mess, it's not an unreasonable thing to say, maybe kids shouldn't have sex. Like,
Sure.
you know what I mean? So, like, putting that thought in the episode is important because pretending like it doesn't exist is naive.
Exactly.
You know? And so she gives the old-fashioned solution that's just going to have to become fashionable again, and I'm talking about abstinence. And she's such a fucking lecture baby that, like, Donna has to give the, like, everyone wants Andrea to speak up, right?
Yeah.
But Andrea is the facts and figures person.
She's not
Andrea, she's not the emotional person. She's not the analogy person. And so they give the most eloquent analogy to Donna.
It's beautiful.
It's really nice. It's like, as much as I love to make fun of the things that they make people say in this episode and this show across the board, giving Donna the swimming pool speech is great.
Uh-huh.
And it again, it states a different position than one that's been stated before. Because, like, you've got Bill, right? The guy that Mel introduces to Jim and Cindy and then shouts at for 20 minutes, which I really like Mel's dynamic with Bill. I really hope they hang out outside of this meeting.
I mean, does that not show you, though, how men are either perceived or believed to be? Like, I mean, you all really do just, like, fight and then you're okay.
Yeah, sure.
Or,
Yeah.
you know, you're able to pretend to be okay. Like, it's...
Right.
We won't get into all those dynamics because it's a mess. But
even Jim's like, Bill's an okay guy. He plays racquetball. But, like, Bill is giving the fuck off, don't spend my tax dollars on this point of view.
Oh my God, I hate that argument.
But it's an argument, right?
It's an argument.
And again, we have to, like, that's what's good about this episode and what makes it so hard to talk about is that they present all of the sides. They present the condoms aren't 100% effective, maybe try not fucking so much perspective.
Okay, I want to touch on that briefly because...
Please touch on that.
Woo. Oh my God. Because this was the moment where I yelled out, "Fuck you, Brenda." By the way, I was watching this episode with my earbuds in and Walter's off to the side playing a game and he's just hearing me go, "Fuck you, so-and-so," or "Oh," the whole time. Like, she's mad about something again. Anyway, so obviously, yes, there's truth in that condoms are not 100% effective. Like, this is a thing we know. Like, you really got to know how to use them properly. And of course, one of the problems with the abstinence-only education is, I mean, I don't know about you, but I was never taught how to use them.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
That is not something that was part... Now, granted, I also took health online, so they could have had that in there, but...
We didn't have the banana class.
No, never had that. I don't know who had that.
Seen it on TV and movies.
Same. Also,
Yeah.
why only a banana?
Well, I mean, I would say you could go with cucumber or some kind of squash, I guess, if you wanted to. But I would say that if you're going to, like, you don't want to get into encased meats because it's just, like, I don't want to see bratwurst or Italian sausage or hot dogs or something because there's something really kind of gross and unsanitary about that.
Well,
although I don't recommend...
Fused.
True. And sausages are awesome, and so is cock. So there's that. But what? Look, we have been pro-boob on this show a million times. I think it's fine for us to be pro-cock at least once.
You've deviated so much from the point that I was pissed about, because they mentioned it, and Brenda makes it all about her, going, "Not always." It's like, well, guess what, honey? That's yours and Dylan's fault. I'm sorry I'm yelling in the mic. But seriously, like, that was your all's mistake. And yes, it is so valid of you to point that out. Like, they're not always effective. But it's just the way she says it. Like, my experience is the only experience.
Here's what I like about it. Go ahead.
No. It's just...
Yes, that's what I like, though. Because every single person in this episode comes at this from their own lived experience. Which is, like, one, that's well written.
Yes.
Like, that is acknowledging the history of this show that has happened to date, which we complained a shit ton about in season 1. Like, they just forget everything that happened. And we're going to complain about it later when in season 8, they forget about shit that happened in season 3. Like, well, I mean, yeah, justice for Scott. But just other stuff that they just get, like, fucking details wrong about, where you're just like, can someone just go back and watch season 3 and then you'll know that it was basketball and not football? For
a reason.
There should
clearly they don't have one. Then again, on other shows where they have explicitly stated in the podcast that they had a show Bible, I'm like, okay, then explain Andy to me.
Right.
On The Office, if no one knows what I'm pointing at. Anyway.
Yeah, I thought maybe you meant Andy from Dawson's Creek or
oh, don't even get me started on that.
Right. So we can't get out of the Walsh's living room, and that's fine with me. Because Bill is like, not my tax dollars. If I want to teach my kid, I'll teach my kid. Which is a position that many people hold. And Mel's counter argument, which I agree with, is then decide for your own kid. And stay out of it. Like, don't decide for mine. But Mel's other position is, this is a fucking epidemic. And we need to treat it as such. And that means talking about it at the very least. Having the open conversation. And that's what the episode wants. The episode wants the conversation. And so they give you all the points of view. And Mel's a doctor. He's a dentist, oral surgeon, whatever. His idea of a good time is a gum massage, apparently. It's weird.
Weird.
Yeah. But Brenda's point of view is, look, these aren't 100% effective. I had a scare. So I understand what she's saying. Now that I've had sex, I understand that it's not the most important thing in the world. So...
Well, which to Brenda, I would say, honey, then maybe you should also look at birth control instead of judging people who are protecting themselves from pregnancy.
Find the gynecologist.
I will.
Yeah. So no, Brenda's conflicted because she is very much pro-sex for her and Dylan.
Oh, yeah.
Seems. Definitely pro making out in front of people. But she's not, but she very much wants to let people know that there's a downside.
Sure.
Which is the position that the show was forced to take at the end of season 1. Brenda really wanted some sex. There's a downside. So here we are. Brenda is feeling the conflict of that downside, which is great because she has a lived experience that she's bringing to the conversation.
Yeah.
Donna's lack of experience, but also fighting with her mom, like just being sort of on opposite sides of things from your parent as a teenager, which is pretty normal, and her mom fucking sucks. So
yeah.
So like it's natural that she's got that, but Donna is coming at it from a safety but not science point of view. Like she's not hitting you with facts and figures and things like that. She's hitting you with, look, this just makes sense. Yeah, she's the common sense voice in this, which is we should be doing more than what we're doing. And for me personally, that doesn't mean having sex with David.
Yeah.
Which is great. Like there's another perspective. Brandon's perspective is kind of, it's muddied. Like, because I don't fully get his motivations here. His experience with Cheryl and with Emily is, I fuck them and they leave.
Yeah.
And so maybe he's got some abandonment issues happening there. I'm not 100% sure.
It felt like, well, if I'm not getting any, no one else should be.
You think he's on the moralized side? You think he's pro Felice?
He was given, I mean, he said she makes a good point. Like,
Yeah.
He I'm sorry, I'm gonna go there. He sounds like those men on the right who are so anti-abortion and yet they're paying for their lovers to have abortions.
Yeah.
Like, he sounds like the guy who, I had this experience, no one else can.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't know if I can keep the part about the right in there or not. I don't want to.
No, it's totally fine. Fuck some people.
It really rubbed me the wrong way. No pun intended. It was just, to quote the youth, it was giving ick.
Yeah, no, Brandon makes me uncomfortable this whole episode. And to be clear, I think that what we're saying is that what this episode is really about is that it's important to talk about sex, but it makes everyone kind of fucking crazy when you do.
Yes, and here's the thing. People think that that feeling uncomfortable is the same as being harmed. And I often have, I experience the same thing when I go into the room as an intimacy choreographer. A lot of times people don't want me in there because they don't want to actually talk about what goes into choreographing an intimate moment. They just want to do it. Much like the dudes who would approach me and say, well, you mean I have to wreck the moment by asking for consent? You're not wrecking the moment.
Right.
Like, and if you think you are, then maybe you're just not a good communicator.
Right.
I will try.
Maybe you're having a different moment.
Yeah, I lost my train of thought, but I'm kind of ready to go into what I thought this episode was about, if you are. But again, I would go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been there. I think we've been in what this episode is really about, which is the whole point of the episode is we think it's important that this conversation is had, and this conversation is messy.
And it's also this episode is also about how consent is important in every facet of life. Because Andrea doesn't ask for the school's permission. I don't think it's implied.
No, she has a media day.
She's very much doing all of this without checking in with anyone, and I get it.
Mrs. Teasley got a problem with that.
I'll save that for another minute. She's not checking in with admin. She's not checking in with any of the adults or her fellow students. She is just assuming that everyone is on the same page as her. To the point where it makes a lot of her friends and classmates uncomfortable, and that's valid. Because again, just because you've had sex doesn't mean you're comfortable talking about it. Just because you haven't had sex doesn't mean you don't have an opinion or feelings about it.
Right.
Again, fuck you, Brandon Walsh in the show, not the way the internet can listen. I know what you mean. I think it's worth saying again. Brenda wants to write a story about a very personal story involving her and Dylan and doesn't ask him about it first.
Right.
Like, consent or the lack of it is everywhere in this episode.
Yeah. Andrea Zuckerman doesn't always take no for an answer. Out of the mouths of Kelly Taylors.
And speaking of Kelly, the worst, blatant example of consent is her first experience, like, and it explains so much of where she is in this. Yeah,
her perspective is born of her experience, which I think she gets. I really like the conversation she gets to have with Andrea at the end of the episode.
Yeah,
which is like, Andrea, you know my experience. You heard me tell this story. And you still look at me as someone who can get whatever I want whenever I want it. And that's not true, because you and I both went after the same guy, and he turned us both down. And he turned us both down to date that crazy bitch and the ice skating lady. So, like, he's not interested in us. We don't know what Brandon wants, except for talking to him doesn't make us feel very good. Like, I know we know that.
I think Kelly is going to be a continued great example of the nuanced the nuanced character that is a woman who has had sex and likes it and is sometimes wanting to date people and maybe have sex, but then also, like, in this episode, very much she was not wanting or in the mood. It's kind of like, and again, that can vary.
And and she has a valid perspective. Again, she presents the side of, I have had sex. I've had sex that was not as consensual as I would have preferred it to be. Even though, like, I thought I wanted it and then I didn't want it and it was really a horrible experience.
Yeah.
Then I've also had sex with Steve in a relationship that I enjoyed, that seemed to be okay. Even though Steve is a big fucking lunkhead.
Well, and now I wonder too, because she said for a year after that first time, I was trying to live up to a reputation I thought I had. So now I'm like, oh man, is she having some regret that she slept with Steve? Like,
or is she having regrets about other experiences she's had that we haven't seen?
True, that's true.
But she's definitely been working through all of this, and that's why this is where she is. I lost where I was slightly going with that. Oh, I know what it was. I wanted to talk about the other part of Kelly's position that she presents in the sushi restaurant.
Yeah.
Which is, all the boys think about is sex. They're so immature, we're going to end up with condom balloons being bounced through the hall. And she's 100% right. Like, that's definitely going to happen. Because high school boys are big fucking dopes.
Yeah.
Across the board. Like, they're not all horrible people, but man, are they dopey. And David is sitting right next to her as the example in this episode so far of the dopey high school boy. The one person in this episode who is the most interested in talking about having sex is David. And it's because he's in a new relationship and he's a virgin and he's a fucking horn dog. And he's so clumsy about it, but he don't want anybody to know that that's all he's thinking about. So he's like, not that I've noticed, Kelly. Not everybody's thinking about it.
He doesn't want to talk about it with the people it's most important he talks to about it. Like, he doesn't want to talk with parents, which, again, I understand, but parents, that's why you have to initiate that conversation. I'll leave it at that. And then also, he doesn't want to talk to Donna about it. Like, he just hears that she was pro-condom and he assumes, like, she's DTF.
Right. She's as ready as I am.
And thankfully they do end up having a conversation because he listens when she says stop. But at the same time, it's like, ooh, this awkward moment could have been avoided if you had just talked to her instead of assuming. Yeah.
But teenagers aren't awesome at talking to each other about stuff about anything important, really. Like, and some of it, I think, is just brain development. Like, you're just not able. Like, your brain doesn't do those things yet. So you wander around and you bump into shit. And that's, and David bumps into Donna here at the end of this episode because he is, look, there's this expectation when you start dating somebody, not an expectation, but a wondering about.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I wonder when, and it's like, oh, if, like, wait, we've been going out for 3 months now. Shouldn't we have? Or is it like when you're together 6 months?
Yeah.
Or is it like, when you're an adult and it's like, third date? Why wait to the third date? Like, what are the rules? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Like, and all, like, so when you're with your first girlfriend, first boyfriend in high school, you've never done this before. You just know that they like you.
Yeah.
You know that they're willing to kiss you. You know that they're willing to feel around and play around and, explore and sort of like you're doing this together. You're trying to figure this shit out together. And mostly you're doing that silently or with some slight groaning. Having the conversation is difficult, It's difficult for adults, as we see in this episode, because Mel can't even take it seriously. Mel's like, you give him a Playboy and say good luck. We had to walk 50 miles to a love-in. Like, Mel's position, aside from this is like an important health topic, is also, we had sex when we were teenagers. These kids are going to do that too. Yeah. It's stupid for us to pretend that they're not. It's okay to joke about sex. Yeah. You should, that's Mel. He's like, that's him in this. You can take this seriously and lightly all at the same time. And no one except for Felice is just flat out wrong.
Yeah.
Everybody has a reasonable thing to say or express about the topic of teenagers having sex. And all of those things make everything uncomfortable. Like, it's clear that we're uncomfortable talking about teenagers having sex. Not me and you specifically, but no. I mean, all of us.
Yeah.
And even the teenagers, because when Dylan and Brenda start making out on the couch, Brandon and Andrea are like, staff meeting tomorrow? Like,
okay, truly, like, why didn't they just leave the room?
Because the point is, even this shit even makes the other kids uncomfortable. Like, every time David brings up condoms, like, to Steve's like,
walk away.
Every time, like, Steve and Brandon are like, dude, fucking just go to the grocery store. Like, have a little chill. And then he goes to Dylan. He really wants to talk about it, and Dylan's like, I don't want to talk about this with anybody. I really don't want to talk about it with you, Silver. I'm leaving. Like, Nat is like broadly supportive of their idea. Like, Nat's awesome in this episode because he gets one scene, and that scene is like, when's everybody getting their condoms? And if it was my daughter, I'd lock her up till she was 35.
Listen, I did not like Nat. I mean, I liked him, and then he said that, and I went, damn it, Nat. First strike, hopefully only strike against Nat ever. Because it's just, that's always, I don't like that is always the case. Like, men can do whatever. I'm locking up my daughter. Well, then guess what's going to happen? Something non-consensual.
Right. Yeah. And you know what's great about that isn't that specifically, but it's the idea that we do this differently for boys and girls, which we talked about in season 1, and which they reference it in such a great way when Brandon's like, I don't know why they just don't talk to their kid. And Cindy's like, it's not easy for some parents to do this. And Brandon's like, it wasn't hard for you guys. And everyone else who's not Brandon is like, it's not 100% true. And then Brenda's like, oh, speak for yourself, because when I had sex, it was a fucking thing.
Yeah.
And these two are clown shoes. And Jim and Cindy, in that moment, are like, we had 2 chances to do this, and we did it wrong both times by doing the opposite thing.
Uh-huh.
And that's where I like Jim and Cindy's perspective on this, which is just, fuck, I'm not sure there's a good way to do this.
Sure. Because even if you give them all the information that you wish you had, you still might be leaving something out, you know?
Right. And you're bringing your own experience to it.
Because
And
we haven't, and this could have come up in that time, but of course it wasn't going to because it was the 90s. But like, we still don't even have discussions about like, what if your child is gay? What if your child is trans? Like, what are the sex talks going to be like for them? Because I guarantee you, neither you nor I mean, we would have to do some research, you know?
sure. I mean, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that
definitely not going to be talked about in school, unfortunately.
yeah, for sure. I do think that, like, yes, do some research, but also unless you're coming to it from a place of this is wrong and you are wrong, child, for having these feelings. If you come at it from any other point of view, that means you're coming at it with love for your child. So you're trying to have an honest, open, useful, helpful conversation. One would hope. And as Jim and Cindy have shown, you're not going to get that right. You're just going to, it's important to have the conversation, even though you're not going to get it right.
Yeah.
And that's what this episode is about.
Just have a conversation.
Yes, we should be talking about this. And all of the ways that we're talking about this make us feel icky. All of them.
Yeah.
Like the David just wanting to buy some rubbers conversation makes us feel awkward. The Steve assuming that there would be naked pictures in the sex pamphlet, that's just fun. Brenda just being out there with Dylan almost got me pregnant, everybody, makes us feel awkward. Dylan stop expressing his very real desire not to have Brenda tell that story is stepping on Brenda's right to tell her own story, and that makes us feel awkward. Yeah. And Mrs. Teasley, and I know you want to, I'm going to hold Mrs. Teasley because I know you want to go off.
Yeah.
Brandon wanting to be supportive of this idea conceptually, but not in practice because he can't get his arms and his heart around how he feels about this. And it's just a fucking dick, makes us feel awkward.
He called out Andrea's sexual inexperience for no reason other than to be a dick. Because, yes, I mean, Jackie mentioned something about thinking teenagers aren't even emotionally ready, which, yeah, I'm kind of with you, Jackie, on this. But again, you got to have the conversation. Mm-hmm. Brandon, there's no reason for him to bring up the feelings and all of this because Andrea isn't talking about that. She's talking about sexual health. And yes, while emotional health should be involved in that, that's not something that is covered in bringing a condom dispenser into school.
Right.
There was no point in that conversation other than to point out her inexperience and basically him saying, you have no experience, ergo you shouldn't have an opinion on it. Which, right. I definitely felt in school.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that giving that to Brandon, I think that's a position that people have that needs to be said out loud in this episode. Right? Because we're having the conversation and the conversation is uncomfortable, you have to sometimes say the thing that feels the grossest, but also is there. It's not a part of it. The fact that Andrea is only talking about the data means that she's missing the fact that she's making other people uncomfortable. Okay. She's missing a whole part of it. Yeah. And she doesn't see that she's missing that part of it. So someone needs to say, there's another part of this.
That's fair.
Giving it to Brandon is weird because he's our hero.
Yeah.
So putting it in the protagonist's mouth is weird, because they also go to great lengths to say, that was fucked up, Brandon. You shouldn't have done that.
And I'm so glad that they had her calling him out and basically saying, you're apologizing, but you're making this about you. But I did note too, she was doing the thing that unfortunately we all feel we have to do when a male is apologizing to us as a woman, which is keep smiling, keep it light. It's fine. You know,
Yeah.
I'm okay. You didn't just wreck me internally and I'll have to talk about this in therapy or in a journal, but I'm fine. It's fine. I want to make sure you're okay.
Right. So here's what's interesting to me about that timing wise. So, we've talked about Survivor a little bit, like that Liam and I watched Survivor. So we are watching season 5. And there's a thing that happens in the 3rd episode of season 5 where there's 2 people on the tribe. They're both, I don't know, in their 30s, both married, not to each other. But everyone on the island sleeps all cuddled up, right? Because, for warmth, like they're all under a shelter. Everybody is like, like this. But there's a situation where he grinds up on her in the middle of the night.
Oh.
And she is not okay with it.
Yeah.
And she calls him on it. And he gives this fucking nonsense apology with like, I'm not all the way awake and sometimes I thought I was sleeping with my wife. And she's like, that feels like bullshit. But I'm going to accept your apology. Everything's okay, which is exactly what you were just saying, right?
You have to fawn. You're stuck in this, which is
and also she's physically trapped on an island with this guy. Right? On a TV show. None of them are wearing much clothing because they're fucking living on an island.
Yeah. It's hot during the day.
Right. But at night you have to, because it gets cold at night, you got to, share body warmth. It's a thing. So, but she's still expressing this. Yeah. And she goes and talks to another woman on the tribe. And she's like, this really fucking bothered me.
Yeah.
And she's like, I understand why that bothered you. That sucks. And she, the other woman, Helen maybe is her name, goes and talks to this fucking redneck asshole Clay and tells him what happened. And then Clay goes to talk to Ted, who is the guy who did the grinding. And Ted is like, I don't know what she's so worked up about. Nothing happened. And Clay goes back to Helen, is like, I'm with Ted. Ted says nothing happened. Nothing happened. And the other guys on the island are like, I think she's making a big deal out about this. I don't know why this is such a fucking problem. Like, he said nothing happened, and she just keeps going on about it. And then Helen goes back to Gandia, which is the lady's name, and says, Ted just told Clay nothing happened. And Gandia fucking loses it. She is pissed because you just apologized to me and now you're invalidating the whole thing.
Yeah.
And she walks off and screams because she is just, and this was 2002 or 2003 when this happened. And I remember all of this, and it's so uncomfortable to watch. And I'm watching it with Liam, and I'm like, you understand how fucked up Ted is with all of this, right? Like, that he made her uncomfortable, and now he's negating the way she feels about it. And that is fucked up. But that's how this whole thing is playing out. And then the guys take his side, and the women are on her side, and the whole tribe is now drawn. And then Ted calls a meeting to tell everybody to get over it. It is so. This is part of the reason that I like watching Survivor, because it is such a mirror on the times.
Yeah.
And when you watch it 20 years later, you're like, God damn, that whole thing is fucked up. And here we are, and we watched that episode last week, and now we're talking about this and this non-apology apology that Brandon gives 12 years earlier, 11 years earlier, 1992. Like it's the same dynamic.
I just had a very cynical thought.
Hmm.
Like, nothing changes. We just have more language to deal with it.
I mean,
Am I wrong?
you're not wrong. No, I don't know that it's like things change, but like the facts of the case don't change. The specifics can change.
True.
The
And
details can change.
uh,
Yeah.
just like a side anecdote, I hate that people are calling these things now their Me Too moment because it's like, I don't know, it feels belittling to the movement, and also like maybe that's a nice way of talking about like your personal experience with harassment and assault. Maybe that's a PC way of calling it. I just don't like it.
Yeah. I think it's a useful shortcut because it's somehow it hasn't been turned into a pejorative.
Ooh,
You
not
know?
from you.
Well, okay, that's valid, but I like just like the way that the left is terrible at branding and marketing,
Yeah.
and the right is fucking great at it. And like the left comes up with things like defund the police, which is not really what they mean,
No.
but it's a saying that allows the right to go, you don't want to defund the police. We need the police. Yay, police. I love police. It's not what they're. I wish you'd come up with a better phrase. And then, or like the whole way that the right has taken the word woke and turned it into like the grossest fucking thing you could ever. I just hate it. Anytime someone says woke, I know who they are and I need them to stop talking.
Yeah.
Because they're just using it as a bludgeon and it's just, you fucking asshole, shut up with that.
Yeah.
But it's because they're great at militarizing language. Like the Patriot Act. Who's not for that? How can you be against the Patriot Act? Well, it involves spying on everybody all the time and violating your privacy. Patriots. Like, the left is terrible at coining phrases that can't be like twisted and turned. And so far, they haven't turned hashtag Me Too into the word woke, which is that like it only gets used as a bludgeon.
That's true.
That's sort of what I mean.
Okay, I get that.
But around you, you're hearing it in a different way.
Yeah. And yeah, I hear it. I hear it different ways, and you know, it's a thing. I'm gonna step over into the Mrs. Teasley of it all, because
Yeah.
while I understand from a writer's standpoint why Brandon, I don't know that he had to be the one to say all this to Andrea. I did not like the optics of Mrs. Teasley, an adult, a Black woman, an educator, telling Brandon, a white male youth, hey, Andrea, I need you to talk to Andrea about this.
Right.
It just doesn't look great. It looks like you're not giving your Black actor any work. It looks like you don't trust adults. I don't know why they think Andrea wouldn't listen to an adult. Like, yeah, she has feelings for Brandon, but like, I guarantee you she would probably value Mrs. Teasley way more than Brandon. But it just, it kind of gives the optics of women still don't trust other women, white people don't trust Black people, students won't listen to teachers.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I understand. And here's why it doesn't rub me quite as wrong. One, I was a school principal and they don't teach you how to do this shit.
Oh, fair.
Like, she's a school administrator in a very public situation that is not of her own making. And she is trying to navigate it in a way to, A, support the students, and B, hashtag don't get fired. Like,
Valid.
she's in a Mrs. Teasley is in a spot,
Yeah.
and like this is a be nice to your kids principle message, because it is. I don't think telling Brandon like, hey, you might want to tell Andrea she got a nice flower shop here, but it'd be a shame if it burned down.
Oh my God.
Like, she's like, it'd be a real shame if she had to lose her role as editor of the paper over this shit, Brandon. So, like, she's giving her the.
If they found out where she actually lives, Brandon.
Right, yeah. I'd hate to have to fuck a bitch up. But I will fuck a bitch up, is what Mrs. Teasley is telling Brandon. And then there's this. When Mrs. Teasley came in like the second scene of the episode to tell them that the thing had been canceled, they cut, and the next thing we hear is somebody asking Andrea if she's skewered any administrators lately. Like, apparently, Andrea got up in that ass. Like, she opened that ass and she stepped in and she like spray painted Andrea was here and like candy wrappers. I mean, she got in that ass, Larry. And she left Mrs. Teasley a little bit nervous about going to talk to Andrea again.
That's fair.
Have you been on the wrong side of Andrea Zuckerman? This is like the conversation that she's having with the other teachers in the lounge. She's like, don't step to Andrea. I mean, you might think that you have some power here. She will tear your shit up.
Yeah, kids are scary.
So, I mean, I understand all of the things that, like, why you don't like that, but sometimes I just feel bad for Mrs. Teasley having to deal with these assholes.
Yeah, it's again a very nuanced thing. Like, there's good and there's bad to it, and once again, you can't do anything perfectly, but you can try and get close. And
yeah, and then Jackie is pregnant.
oh my God.
Which is it's such a nice counterpoint to the episode, which is we are all so concerned with teens having sex that we're not paying attention to our own stuff.
Nope.
We are saying one thing and doing another. We are hypocrites. And the proof is Mel got me knocked up.
I am so impressed at the subtlety because it was, I mean, normally I clock that shit right away, but they played this so subtly, like, just bug.
Right.
You know, even the typical, like, it's 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Like,
right. And even because you tend to watch the episodes before I do, but I know what happened. And so I know that you're going to get this. And so you're like, oh my God, Jackie's pregnant. And I was like, that's why Kelly was picking up the pies at the end of the last episode. And you're like, oh my God. And like, that's how subtle they were in dropping this, is that like Kelly's going to the Peach Pit late at night because Jackie's got cravings.
But she doesn't
say, yeah, just a little bit of a sprinkle.
I just figured it was, you know, they talk about how addicts have to replace an old addiction with a new one, and a lot of times it ends up being food. Yeah, sugar. So, like, I just figured it was this. Right. Damn, that's a lot of pie, Jackie.
And then it's like, come see, come saw, I got a little bug. And then it's not the I shouldn't eat shellfish. Shellfish is bad for you when you're pregnant thing, which is also like the West Wing did that, like as a hint that a character was pregnant. It's fine. That's subtle enough, but you know, you've seen it. But it's instead they do this smells funny to me. I don't know. It's just not.
I thought she was being racist.
That's hilarious.
Like, I'm not touching this Asian food, and I'm like, how dare you?
Right. I'm glad that you didn't think that she was being anti-eating and pussy, because you could have gone that way too. And we're pro.
Absolutely.
So they put these little tiny little sprinkles in there, so that at the end, when she's like, "You got to promise me, I'm pregnant," cut to black. You can like see all of the little breadcrumbs they put in there, and it's clear that they were. I think they knew this was happening at the beginning of the season.
Oh, okay.
Like, I don't know that they knew everything. Like, I don't know that they had like a whole arc where they like know every character is going to go from here to here. I think they probably do like 6-episode chunks, kind of a thing. Like they do the Emily Valentine storyline.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. But I feel like they knew that they were going to get Jackie pregnant.
Interesting.
And so they started to like give her a relationship, and they start to, but putting the reveal at the end of the condom episode is really smart. Yeah, it's really good, because it takes this entire episode, which is about this thing that like we're all real uncomfortable talking about this, but we're talking about it. And at the end, there's a consequence, but it's not a consequence that the teenagers are dealing with. It's a consequence that the adults are dealing with. But yeah, and it pushes the story into the end game.
Wow.
Like now we've got like 5 episodes left of the season, something like that.
Oh my God, what?
This is episode 21. So how many do we have this season? I know. We are episode 21, and there are 28 episodes. So there's 6 more.
Oh my God. So she's going to full on by next season.
Well, so yeah, we'll see how all this plays out, is what I'm saying.
Oh, that's true.
But
that's true.
they landed one, I thought, with the Jackie pregnancy reveal.
Yeah.
Because it works on all these different levels, and it gives you not the first, not the last parental hypocrisy of this program.
Nice.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I think that was all of the things that this episode was really about.
I mean, again, I could go on and on because this episode was so great. It had so many things. But yeah, I think I'm good to leave it at that. Except my one last thing. Be nice to those who are sexually inexperienced, you teenage assholes who might be listening.
To the boys and the girls, because the boys are big fucking dopes like David. And the girls don't want to be yelled at because they don't know anything about having sex. So what did this make you nostalgic for?
God. This is so weird. So I had a classmate in high school who, when she had sex, she suddenly became like the Dr. Ruth. Like, yes. She was to an annoying degree. Like, I remember during one of the shows we were in together, during intermission, we would be sitting backstage and she would be like having a sex lecture with other girls. And I remember thinking like, this is so inappropriate. And in a way, yes, but also now as an adult, I'm like, you know what? Maybe if I hadn't judged her and had listened, I would have learned something that I would have felt more comfortable. Like,
yeah, maybe.
I had a horrible realization while watching this episode. I had many, but this is the main one, which is the people who I was friends with, who ended up being hardcore conservative, were the ones who were nicest to me about my inexperience. And the ones who I wasn't as close to, who were at the time, and still I would say more liberally minded, made fun of me. I don't know if those two things are connected, but it's quite unfortunate. They were connected in my case.
Right.
And so, you know, to that young woman now, I'm sorry that I judged you. You will never hear this. You probably don't even know that I didn't care for your sex lectures in the middle of a show in high school.
Right.
But yeah, I was thinking of her this entire time, and I was just like, man, I was so I judged her way too harshly. I still,
You know what you were in high school? You were Sexperts Go Home guy.
probably
Because she was the sexpert that you knew, and you're like, go home. I don't want to hear any more of your sexpert talk.
Well, and it was just one of those things where, like, I related to Donna, and I related to Donna more in this episode. Like, I have an opinion. I don't know all the facts and figures, but I have opinions and I have feelings on it. And also, like, I'm not doing this while I'm in high school because that seems stupid.
Right.
Like, where are we going to go? Either of our parents' houses? Oh, that sounds really sexy. No, thank you.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So, yeah. That's what this episode made me think about.
So I don't know if it's made me nostalgic for anything, but I'll tell you this. I was so much more David Silver than any other guy in this episode when I was in high school.
I figured.
I was fumbling and dopey and incredibly preoccupied with the idea of having sex and touching a boobie and like all of it. I mean, the whole thing was like, I was really interested in this.
Yeah.
And like, probably sweatily so. You know what I mean? Where you're just like that was just me. Because whatever. Like, we're not always our coolest selves. And
No.
high school me, not my coolest self. So I don't feel like nostalgic for that, but I also look back at that kid with a lot of grace and just go, man, and with the idea of like, I would probably just counsel you to calm down a little bit.
Oh my God.
Like that's, if you could just, like, this isn't, it just calm down.
Like,
Like,
I wish I'd had the language. Not that anyone deserved to know my reasons why I didn't want to be intimate with anyone, but like, beyond making out was enough for me. I was like, this is amazing. Right. Why do I need more? Right. Adult Leslie knows better, but still, making out is fun. But yeah, I wish I'd had the language to be able to tell like my one high school boyfriend why. Why no? Again, not that you need to give a reason why. I just would have liked it for myself now, but it's fine. I'm still friends with some of the guys who made fun of me, but it's fine. You know, when you keep saying it's fine, it doesn't make it any more fine, but it's okay.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, it just, I think what I would like, what I wish that I had known was you should probably just talk to girls like they're people and not like they're like something to attain, you know, like you're like look, boobs are awesome. I love boobs, but they're just boobs. Like, it's fine. Like, calm down about them a little bit. Like, that's like, it's that kind of like, because I just got so nervous and so in my head and not sure what to say, and everything was going to be wrong that I said, and I just felt dopey and awkward and like, you can just talk to somebody because they're a person, and like, then you have a relationship with a person, and like, that's what you want.
Yeah. I don't know how we make. Yeah. I agree. I don't know how we make dicks less scary. Yeah, like that's a whole other conversation.
I think full frontal wet noodle is how you do it. in just TV shows. Just a lot of wet noodle.
More education. Yeah, but yeah, wet
Yeah.
noodle, more education. That'd be
Yep.
great.
Yeah. Okay. Who is the Steve Sanders Memorial worst person of the episode?
Oh, it's Brandon. Fuck Brandon. That honestly, I was to the point this episode where I thought, you know what? Maybe I judged Steve too harshly. Maybe it should be Brandon Memorial. Because I was so mad at him. He was so mean. He was so hurtful to Andrea. And again, that apology was just nothing. Nothing.
I liked that they made him twist. Like that he had to have like 4 scenes apologizing for what an asshole he was.
Yeah.
You know, like I thought that was pretty I did like that. Like it's good that like everyone that he talked to after that was like, dude, you were a fucking dick. And then he had to go talk to Andrea and apologize multiple times for being a dick. And it's really good that he got hoisted on his own petard just a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
But for me, the worst person of the episode is Felice.
Oh, I knew that.
Because I can't stand Felice, but I can't stand the abstinence only thing.
Nope.
You know, they just shouldn't be doing it. And if they do, then come see, come saw, you're going to get a little bit of a bug.
Yeah, I will never understand I mean, you're going to have to lock away both of your kids, but again, like you're just making it more enticing.
Right. Yeah. The chastity belt lock gets picked eventually. So, all right. So I think we did it.
I think we did it.
I think everybody talked about it.
Oh, yeah.
So next week we're moving on to season 2, episode 22, Baby Makes 5.
Oh, no.
Yep. So I'm going to tell you that next week's episode has a different tone. It is.
Oh, no.
No, it's fine because you can't do this episode every week. This episode is like, I mean, you can only have one favorite episode of the season, and it can't be every week.
I mean, it makes sense. There's a lot of things that they're going to have to consider, and I really hope that they don't just get married because they got pregnant. Like,
right.
Stop.
Yeah. So we will we'll reconvene next week to talk about And Baby Makes 5. But on Friday, what are we going to be talking about? We are going to be talking about... Oh, we don't know. We haven't decided yet. As of this recording, we have not decided what we're going to do for the Peach Pod After Dark. So in real world time, we have lots of time to figure it out, and we will. So join us on Friday for whatever the fuck we decide to watch in conjunction with this big sex thing that we just talked about.
Yeah.
But until then, Cheesemeisters.
Bye.
Bye.